Hello friends, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. I am Arvind Swaminathan, clean for a change, no beard. Now we've already had two videos on the Constitution, one on democracy, another one on secularism. This is the third part of it, and this concerns the other tenet on which our Constitution is based, equality. However, before we go on, let me just say, I saw this film, Kashmir Files, and it left me very, very angry. How can people be so bestial? I mean, these are things one doesn't even think about, unless, of course, you're brought up that way. And if you're brought up that way, nothing's impossible. I mean, people are interviewed who say, we murdered 20 or 30 Hindus. And these guys are still wandering around free as bees, or free as little birds. They can do what they like. I mean, how is this possible? Is it impossible to get people justice and put such monsters behind bars? Is the government that inadequate? I'm talking about the government at the time in Jammu and Kashmir, who still claim, no, it never happened. Even today people say it never happened. Muslims also died. When? Certainly not then. I mean, if you come to Delhi, you'll see Kashmiri market, near INA market. Most of them are Kashmiri refugees in their own country. And at the time, we never even heard about it. This is what shocks me, that the entire media, the newspapers, magazines, not one of them said a word. As far as they're concerned, it never happened. And if it never happened then, are we supposed to believe it today? After seeing the movie, we begin to understand. May I suggest you have a look at the movie and form your own opinion? Because my telling you about it is not worth that much. You have to see it yourself, to experience it, to understand the feelings of these people. And all that has been brushed under the carpet and stomped on. Nobody knows anything about it. Now when it comes out in the open, the lobby is still there trying to say, no, it never happened. It's all an exaggeration. Not just this one, there's something similar that happened in Kerala. Oh, sorry, it was then Travancore. It was called, in our parlance today, the Mopla massacres. God knows how many thousands, was it 20,000 or 50,000 Hindus were slaughtered because they would not convert to Islam. And between 50 and maybe 100,000 who were forcefully converted to Islam. And we have not heard about it ever. All this goes back again to our Constitution, which is what we come to, the third part, equality. Now, unfortunately, from what little I've seen of the Constitution, it has been turned into a jackass, a joke. And who is responsible? Maybe Nehru. Well, I'm pretty certain it was Nehru himself. Nehru brought out two articles which he wanted inserted into the Constitution. Article 30 and Article 30A. He showed it to Sardar Patel around 1948. And Sardar Patel's reaction was, if you try and get this into the Constitution, I will resign from all my posts in Congress, in government, and I will fight it in the courts, in Parliament, and on the streets if necessary. I will oppose these tooth and nail. Nehru had to withdraw. Unfortunately, Sardar Patel died before 1950. And the moment he died, of course, Nehru brought this in and had it put in. Now, what is Article 30? And this is a classic example of total inequality built into the Constitution. Article 30 says you can teach Islam in any school, college, university, madrasa, mosque, dargah, anywhere. All the money that comes to the Waqf boards, all the dargahs, all the madrasas, they keep and use to spread their own religion. Similarly, what goes to the Christian missions or churches, that money they keep. They can teach Christianity in schools and colleges and universities, church halls and so on. Very good. The government doesn't take any of the donations and so on which comes to them. They keep it for themselves. Article 30A is what turns everything into a joke. It says Hinduism may not be taught anywhere, not in schools, not in colleges, not in universities, not in temples, not in temple grounds, nothing. And all the money that comes in as donations, that the government takes over and has control over. So where is your equality? Nehru killed it even before it got started. It is in the Constitution. Now how can we get out of this one? The Constitution has to be looked at carefully and amended, because there are so many of these anomalies in there that it's not funny anymore. It isn't even a joke. It's about time we got up and did something about this. Congress governments never would, because they have favored Islam, and favored Islam in such a way that Hindu rights have been curtailed horribly, and Islamic people have a free run of everything. They have a field day, they have a paid holiday all the time. I mean, in some states, in a lot of states, the state government actually pays madrasas for the teachers they get, the Maulanas and the Maulvis, even though the Constitution says the state and religion must be kept apart. Are they being kept apart? No. In West Bengal, you have a Hajj house. You have another one in Hyderabad. In Delhi, you have a Hajj pilgrimage center for people going for Hajj, and they get subsidies to go there. Do Christians get a subsidy to go to Jerusalem? Do Hindus get a subsidy to go to Badrinath, Kedarnath and so on? No. So where is equality? I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it? No, it doesn't. Now I'm beginning to wonder, was Nehru ever a Kashmiri Pandit? Had he been a Kashmiri Pandit, would he have allowed such things? Would he have done such things? As a result of all this, one must believe or begin to believe, as rumors have said, that Nehru was a Muslim. You can see from all the things he did that he hated Hindus. Oh, he loved the British, yes. All he ever did was enforce what the British had been doing for God knows 150 years. How did he do that? Again, where's your equality? The British created the ICS, which was there to govern a colony. We must remember this. Now they knew no other way, and they continued that. They trained the IAS, who have continued that even to this day. They are the elite, everybody else is below them. Why? What is the IAS? And Nehru destroyed the civil services. I don't know, most of you have never heard of the S.A. Venkatraman case, when a good ICS officer, for being honest and giving an honest opinion, he was harassed. There were 6 or 7 CBI inquiries. He was found guilty of corruption, not because they could prove it, but there were 2 receipts which he could not find or produce. One for a bottle of whiskey and another one for a bag of tamarind. Tamarind is something South Indians would understand. It is part of their everyday cooking. For your sambar, it's what gives it that sourish taste. Now, that's when I understood, the skirting board with the thick wires with all the papers in there. All those papers were receipts going back 30 years. That sent a clear message to the entire administration. Do as your politician or your political head tells you, or you end up like S.A. Venkatraman. We don't want your honesty or integrity. Just do as you're told. We're the boss. The administration understood. You go against them, you're in trouble. A lot of these businessmen who come from there, who have not people who know these politicians, they go around and say, look, we want this done. If you don't do it, they send a bad report. You get sent somewhere really silly. If you do as they told, they give you put in a good word, you go up, you make more money under the table. Why would they not do it? Why would they not become corrupt? Not just this. You have another thing that destroys everything. It's called reservations. Now reservations are something which I have been against for at least 50 years. This is something which I think Dr. Ambedkar thought should go out after 10 or 15 or 20 years. Unfortunately, politicians, being what they are, they have not only kept it, driven it deeper and increased the number. If it was 10% or 20% then, it is now 50%, maybe more. This doesn't make sense. Now we're coming to the crux of so many things, so many of the ills and the evils of this country. And this also, I'm not sure, but it probably also goes back to the Constitution. You see, it may be very well to think, these poor guys who have not had a chance, they must come up. Yes, but not in key positions. Not in positions where they destroy the morale of everybody else. Reservations, we have them in every walk of life. Whether it's in schools, admissions to colleges, universities, jobs, medical colleges, you name it. And once they get through all that, your public sector units, government jobs, they're full of them. The attitude being, they'll learn. Or as they say in Hindi, seekh jayega. Why don't you pull in the street sweeper from outside and say, okay, from now on, this is going to be your kids' teachers. But what does he know? He'll learn. While he's teaching your kids, he'll learn. Is this the sort of quality we want in all our administrative services, all our public sector units, all our manufacturing units, chemical, you name it? Is this what we really want? And yet we don't seem able to get out of it. How much of taxpayers' money is wasted and thrown away 75 years after we attained independence? 75 years is not just like yesterday. It's an entire lifetime. And there probably 3 generations have come up in that time. And still they don't know. So much so that, is there any room for merit? If not, why not? Unless, of course, all Congress governments have said, a bit like Narasimha Rao's, who clearly openly stated, if you're competent, you know what you're doing and so on, we don't want you here, you go abroad. We only want mediocre people here. For a Prime Minister to say that, what does it do to the entire nation? It told me that I've wasted my life coming back here. 54 years of absolute and utter waste. Because all I do is come up against these brick concrete walls. Nothing else. Nothing goes in. Why? Because those people, many of them, are ignorant. They're living in the past and they're still doing what they did 30 years ago. There is no willingness for any change. And when a change does come, they resist it tooth and nail. Which is why everybody is against Modi today, because he wants to change so many of the things that are totally wrong. Why does he want to? Because until you start changing it, you can't go forward. You're going to be stuck in that time warp of 50 or 100 years ago. You have to start opening your minds. You have to start thinking and doing what is needed to go forward. Yes, changes are coming, but they're too slow. You've got to speed up a little. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's this slow nature of change and the inequalities in our constitution which have caused all these stupid things that keep cropping up. You've heard about what happened to Kashmiri Pandits. Suddenly you get down south, hijab controversy. Why? It happens because everything has been given to one community. Why? They're supposed to be a minority. Now here again, when you look, you ask the question, what is a minority? There is no answer. There is no definition. No government, not even the Constitution, has defined what is a minority. Who or what constitutes a group which can be called a minority. It's all left to the whims and fancies of whoever is in power. You give me your votes, I'll give you these privileges. I'll include you as a minority. Worse than that is, there is not even a guideline to guide people into what or who can come in as a minority and who may not be included in this particular grouping of minorities. Now, with no guideline and no definition, how do you decide who is a minority? Are Muslims a minority? Are Hindus a minority? What about me? I'm a Brahmin, supposedly. Am I not a minority? You go to Tamil Nadu and we're worse off than the Kashmiri Pandits. We get penalized, picked on and thrown out in case we don't get jobs there. We have to do our own. And this has been going on for 50 or 60 years. Why? I mean, it's ridiculous. You go to the northeast, maybe 90% Christian, 2 to 8% Hindus, and yet Hindus are the majority and Christians are a minority. Does that make sense? No. And yet wherever they go, Hindus are kicked, squeezed, taxed, and kept down. A Muslim can kill 10 Hindus, nothing happens. It gets brushed under the carpet. But you mustn't point the finger at them. No. They're a minority. How? Do we even know what is a minority? Now, it's this which has created the hijab controversy. Now, even in the most, how shall I put it, orthodox of Muslim communities, Saudi Arabia for one, even in Pakistan, hijab is not necessary. The hijab was not necessary so far. So suddenly how does it become a part of Islam? Just because a certain few people say so? Do remember one thing, even the Quran says, there is no place for Maulvis or Maulanas or these middlemen. You read the Quran yourself and understand it yourself. You will find so many anomalies in there, which is what the real jihad is, to understand what does the Quran mean. I mean, this hijab is nonsense. If there is a school uniform, you apply and get admission there, you agree to wear that uniform. Not just in this country, abroad also. Even in the UK, there used to be this thing which most students hated. You had to wear a school cap. When? When you left school premises to go home, or when you left your home to come to school, you must have your cap on. Why? It tells everybody you belong to this school, this is where you're going. 2. If you're over 14, the school gives you a half-fare card. This is your identity. The cap tells us, because you've got the school's logo on there. Also, if there is an accident, something happens, they know whom to contact, so that somebody can come and help out. But the moment you enter school premises, the cap comes off and goes into your pocket or into your school bag. You do not wear that cap in school premises. Similarly here, what you wear outside the school or institute is your business. When you come into school, you do not wear anything but what the school uniform says. Not just in the UK, in Dehradun school, a lot of people in upper circle would know this. There is a certain dress code for classes, there is another one for the sports field, and there is a third dress code for PT in the morning or when you're doing gymnastics or athletics. Now, each section has its own dress code and you have to adhere to it. If you don't, you're in trouble. In fact, in the UK, I got caught up once for an imposition because the color of my socks was wrong. It was light green instead of grey. Early in the morning, when it's still dark, you put it on, you don't realize it's not the right one. I got hauled up for that. Yes, it's true. I mean, this hijab is nonsense. Why? Because most probably the people who are getting people to sort of demonstrate, they don't know. They just say Muslim supremacy, trying to make this an Islamic country. And this, unfortunately, is a trend with Muslims. Wherever they go, they must take over. They must, for instance, either convert other people or sit on top of others. I mean, okay, they claim it's part of their religion. But when they're allowed to stay somewhere peacefully and quietly, I don't think they should be doing what they're doing. The other thing is, if you don't like conditions here, you want this, that and the other Sharia law, there are 57 other Islamic countries where the Sharia law is in force. Please go to any of them which will allow you to enter. Because if you want Sharia law and stuff, this is not the country for you. This is supposed to be, and is, I hope, a secular country where all are welcome, but under certain circumstances. You behave yourselves here, nobody says anything. You don't behave, they better start understanding that we won't tolerate it. Now, please understand that I'm not saying one thing or another. It's just that these are the laws, please live by them. I know it may sound as if I'm anti-Muslim or anti-this. No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that all of us are equal. And if a Muslim does something criminal, he should be punished the same as a Hindu or a Christian. Why does this happen, that Muslims almost seem to be sacrosanct, but Hindus are not? They're there to be stomped on for everything. I mean, this doesn't make sense to me, it never did. And this is why Muslim supremacy or supremacists are beginning to make more and more demands. The result you can see, there are demonstrations everywhere. The Kashmir Files is a classic example. The Mopla massacres of 1921 is another such example. The hijab thing is another one. Why? I mean, there is no need for it. Nobody has said you have to become Hindu to live here. Maybe they should. I don't know. But if you don't listen, what's the point? Now, the other thing is, I'd mentioned the ICS and IAS. Reservations come in. Why? They're all selected through a public exam. And depending on your ranking, you get whether you get the IAS, the IPS, so that's the police, or defense services, or postal services, or post offices. It depends on your ranking in that exam. And yet, here again, your reservation is come in. A person of, say, a particular rank gets defense services or postal services, whereas a person 100 positions before gets the IAS. Why? Because he's a scheduled caste or something like this. I mean, how can you go in for such injustice? What does it do to the quality or the level of intelligence or competence of all those administrators? What example does it set them? Everybody below says, why should I make any effort? Not just that, you get ridiculous subjects like people who just studied Islamic studies. They're called graduates and they get in. Why? Is that going to be of any use in administration, in the IAS services? I mean, is there such a ministry? No. So, all these IAS people, do they get put into ministries where their technical or knowledge of something or other, or a classical subject like chemistry or petrochemicals or something, will he ever get in there? Or does a person who maybe started BCom will end up in petrochemicals? He knows nothing about that. Somebody else might end up in agriculture, he knows even less about that. Now, when you have incompetent people everywhere, what do you expect? They won't do anything, they can't do anything. And if they surround themselves with so-called experts, or experts with no knowledge, or whose knowledge is purely theoretical, they've never set foot in a field, they've never tried doing any of it with their own hands, what can you expect? You see, the other thing is, not only are you selected on the basis of the exam, but there's also an interview. And they still go in for this silly stuff. Now, I don't understand why they do it. I mean, I've had some classic howlers. Way back, for over the 50 years that I've been back in this country, that administrators, ICS and IAS people have asked me things which I found almost ludicrous, laughable. I won't mention them here because some of them may still be alive. And I mean, they were so ridiculous, I just couldn't believe. And the number of times I've come across this ignorance all over the place, I mean, people would not believe it. They still don't. I know they don't. And yet these things happen to me. Solid, practical experience. People don't give a damn for this. Practical experience. They think, I know it all. Why? They have a degree in something, they know it all. They've never set foot on the ground. They don't understand what happens on the factory shop floor. They just stuck up here somewhere. Ivory towers, I think you call it. Anyway, folks, please try and understand that a lot of the solutions to these problems are intrinsic. They're in there. You might have to spend a little time to think about it, but they're in there. The Constitution needs thorough overhaul. Many of these things need to change. The IAS needs an overhaul. This Hindu-Muslim thing, first, what is a minority? And if a Muslim does something, you mustn't mention it. But if a Hindu or Christian does it, okay, throw the book at him. And you go to places like Tamil Nadu, you're almost coerced into converting, especially if you're a Hindu. No, become something else. The push from the south and the push down from the north, from UP and such places. Here in Kashmir now, as we hear. All are virtually against Hindus. Why? They're probably the few people who pay tax. And it's their money you're living off. So why are you kicking them? Think about that. Think very carefully. Because one of these days the Hindus are going to get upset about this and take action. We might end up with a civil war. But if you carry on like this, that's what you deserve. It's about time we all grew up and learned to behave. Well, folks, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Please press the like button, subscribe. And subscribing, I ask you to do that because if you liked it, you get all my videos automatically. We don't have to sort of keep telling everybody else. If you subscribe, it'll come to you automatically the moment it's uploaded. So please like, subscribe, upload. Not upload, just like and subscribe. And if you have comments, please let me know. Thank you. Goodbye. See you next time.
These brothers my guys, know that we fly, know that they ride or die.